it's awesome to be in a program with people who come from different backgrounds but may also share similar experiences. Uh, when it comes to like tackling like a problem, it's good to have different perspectives, whether that comes from economic, racial, geographic perspectives. Uh, it gives dimension to a solution of a problem.
For me, it was honestly very different to be in a program that's so diverse. In a lot of my environmental and earth science classes, there are often only about a handful of people of color. And so to come into a program that's just so full of diversity in, interests, what people are interested in studying, in your, experiences and your personal backgrounds, identities, it just makes you feel immediately so much more comfortable. I felt very comfortable speaking up and sharing my thoughts. And I think that having that sense of community where you can feel open, and having people who are like you in that type of community is so important, because it helps you grow and feel more confident in sharing your thoughts. And that's why diversity is really important, because if you have a group that all has the same kind of thinking, then you can't have a diverse set of solutions that you're coming up with. And like Alexis said, when climate change disproportionately affects certain communities, you need to have that diverse set of backgrounds and experiences. And so, yeah, that's why I really appreciated being able to work with everyone who has different interests in school and other personal passions, and you get to learn from that and, collaborate with each other and come up with new solutions.
I just want to echo what everyone else has been saying, in that being able to see so many peers who look like me, who look like the things that you don't usually see in the environmental field, is really rewarding. I know when I first started doing work in the environmental field, it was pretty discouraging to see mostly white people, to see mostly old white people, and
Mm-hmm.
to have the chance to be able to see young people doing this work, to see people of color doing this work, really affirms my place in what I'm doing and reminds me that this is work that I belong in. And I think the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program has been really great in sort of giving me that reminder that this is something that I want to continue doing, but also is also reminding me that I'm not the only one my age who's also doing this. There's a lot of other amazing people from all over the nation who are doing work in conservation and work in sustainability and are going to be continuing to lead the path. And it's so reassuring to see that there's so many amazing, smart students who I can look forward to working with in the future.
I was grateful that not only were the students specifically picked because of our interest in diversity, but also the professors and the graduate students. There were so many leaders who, for the first time, looked like me and had similar values in like green infrastructure and environmental justice. And that was it was so affirming that this is a true path in environmental studies, that we can care about environmental justice and make a difference and still be considered a part of the larger community. And that was so incredible to meet so many professors and like leaders, and that in our small groups, getting to know a specific like leader in the community who was interested in environmental justice and interested in different aspects of it. I feel like I learned so much about like green gentrification and food access and all these different aspects that I never really thought about connected to environmental justice. And I wasn't expecting that every time I met with people, I'd be like, oh, that's something else I can learn about. And that's something else that's impacting my communities. And that's something that's happening around me, and that I can make a difference in it, and that I have to and need to, that it's more important than ever, considering everything that's happening, considering extreme illnesses, the Black Lives Matter movement, and efforts to sort of dissuade people from joining these movements, that it's more important than ever to have people who have lived experiences, who know what the consequences of not fighting for environmental justice, that we are able to emphasize and highlight these leaders in our communities. And the program really did this. They didn't just say diversity matters. They said this is what diversity looks like, And this is how we're going to fight for diversity, both within our campus and outside in the broader world of environmental justice. And that was just really inspiring and definitely something that I think I feel empowered to demand environmental justice, to demand more diversity with my environmental studies like faculty at my university, and just going forward that we need to represent the people who are most affected by environmental justice and who know the history of environmental studies and sustainability.
I think it's so amazing to have a program that puts like diversity so much in the forefront. I think it's really important, especially in this day and age with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of other movements for like Indigenous communities. It's really being put into the news lately related to like social culture. So I think it's really important. I think this program really, it really went into deep with it. I know like the first week before we started, we read a lot of articles and stories on the history of the environment and how that relates to diversity and how some things have changed now and how some things haven't changed. And so it was, even though we all as participants of the program come from underrepresented communities in the environment, I feel like we still all learned a lot about different diversity aspects in the environmental field through this program. And it was truly interesting to hear, especially because at the University of Michigan where I attend, we don't always have classes that look at environmental justice, especially because environmental justice issues relate very much to demographic issues. So that was really nice. And I think diversity is being able to have those conversations about all of these different topics, what's happening now, what happened in the past, how are they similar, how are they different, and kind of just talking through them and being able to able to not only listen, but then also like share your own stories.
Yeah, so this was the first time that I had ever seen like a large group of like kids of color in an internship all together. And it was so important to me just because there was so much like representation and everybody is coming from a different walk of life and everybody has a different experience. And I go to a school that's a majority white school. So there's, I think there's 80% of us are white, and there's only 20% of us who are people of color. And it's just it was starkly different from like experiences in like white classrooms and stuff like that. And there's just, I heard more people talking about like their own experiences in life. And I think that representation is super important. Because if you don't see yourself working in a position, how are other like people who are impressionable going to be seeing themselves working in positions? And just the opportunity for this very highly esteemed program to let in so many people of color and just form a community where we can openly talk about these things without feeling like we're the only ones having to is super important. Because at my school, oftentimes if we're talking about things like race or anything like that, people look to me immediately for my input because of the way that I look rather than just like things that I've experienced. So it's much easier when there's more of us and nobody's just like, you're the tokens, so please speak to us. Like none of us are tokens, we're all just normal. So that was really cool. And I think it's important to have that diversity aspect also in a workplace, because I've always been a huge proponent of like getting as many voices as you can, especially in making decisions, especially in like a project. So if you just have one, like that quote that talks about history has only been, we're only taught history from like the winners or the ones that like were able to conquer kind of thing. We never hear from those who weren't, or those who were like persecuted. Is super important, and that's just as important in a workplace aspect. You can't just have one voice, one walk of life when you're talking about things that affect millions of people.
In any field, diversity is important because it brings those different perspectives. That if you have an homogenous group, you're looking at a problem through a tunnel. You have tunnel vision, so you're not getting all of these different aspects because your solution might not be the best solution for a different group. And especially environmentally, we know that it disproportionately affects different groups, all these different environmental problems. So I think especially in this program and putting us into a field like conservation, environmental justice, having diversity is of utmost importance to have those different perspectives.